Damn, son, where'd you find this?
First initial, last name for the courts, okay?
Sure. It would be M. Viverito, Viverito.
And good morning, Investigator Rivera. How are you?
Good morning, I'm well.
Where do you work?
The City of Atlanta Police Department.
And how long have you worked for the City of Atlanta Police Department?
Since February of 2023.
And what are your current job duties and responsibilities with the City of Atlanta Police Department?
Currently, I hold the rank of investigator, and my position is unique. It's the first of its kind for the Atlanta Police Department. It's a move towards intelligence-led investigations. So my official title is an investigative gang analyst. That is where it's basically a hybrid between a detective and a criminal intelligence analyst. So you're fusing the best parts of both worlds to move investigations forward, especially in the gang world.
And when you said intelligence-led investigation, just tell the jury briefly, what do you mean?
Intelligence-led investigations where you think outside the box. So it's not just, okay, maybe some camera footage, talking to some people. You're using everything at your disposal, whether it be social media accounts, jail calls, phone extractions, wiretaps, everything. You're going to try and get everything you can from the intelligence world and do your research and bring that all in together than just traditional investigative techniques.
Prior to working at Atlanta Police Department, where did you work?
Start from the beginning.
No, just
Okay.
immediately prior.
Prior to the Atlanta Police Department, I was with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office in their gang unit. I was a senior investigator, and then I was ultimately promoted to a lieutenant in the high-profile case unit.
And let's first talk about your time as a senior investigator. Tell the jury about your job duties and responsibilities as a senior investigator in the gang unit.
So I would work with various attorneys in the unit, and I would review cases that were coming up for trial or being prepared for indictment. And I'd take a look at the file, and we'd see if there was anything that was needed to push the case forward. We may go talk to people. We may locate witnesses. We may secure additional search warrants and just get the case ready and be trial ready for when it ultimately goes to trial or takes a plea.
And as a lieutenant, what did you do when you were with the high-profile unit?
It was things of a similar nature, but it was a little bit more, again, as the title would allude to, high-profile cases, media cases, cases that involve difficult witnesses, and cases that were a little bit more complex.
Now, prior to working at the Fulton County District Attorney's Office, did you work for any other law enforcement agency?
I did.
If you could tell the jury about your career in law enforcement.
Sure. I graduated from the University of Tampa with a bachelor's degree in criminology. I did about a year down in Tampa working at a juvenile facility to get some experience. Then after that, I moved to Atlanta. I started my career with the Georgia Department of Corrections as a felony probation officer. While I was there, my career has exclusively been in the city of Atlanta. While I was there, I started out with a normal caseload. Shortly after that, they started a program, what was called the Atlanta Community Impact Program. It was a pilot program driven to reduce recidivism for people returning back to the community from prison. So somebody may get sentenced to a prison sentence that includes probation. So they partnered us with, every day we were partnered with Atlanta police officers. We would ride with them. They would come with us to do home visits. So we'd get a list of returning citizens from prison, and we'd offer wraparound services. So if you need a job, if you need housing, if you need clothing, if you need education, if you need anything you need, we offer it there as a kind of a one-stop shop in an effort to reduce recidivism. So on the other hand, then, if you want to get out of prison and say, you know what, not interested, I'd like to engage in a crime spree, thanks. We have the Atlanta Police Department with us every day to say, okay, we're going to stop that before you get hurt or before anybody else gets hurt, and bring communities.
I want you to slow down a little because you are going so
Sorry.
fast. And
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
now I'm going to take you to March 16th, 2022. Did you have the occasion to respond to a shooting at 2830 Waters Road?
I did.
And how did you get involved with responding to the shooting at 2830 Waters Road?
One of my partners, either Investigator Dabney or Investigator Flores.
Investigator Flores, you remember earlier? Okay. One of my partners. I think this is one of my partners, Investigator Flores.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
This is a Daubert hearing, and this is from Amira. This is from Marissa Viverito's Daubert hearing in October of 2023, so right before trial started. Okay, so Steele is asking here, this is crossed by Steele. Did you say that you were basing your learning that you think is higher, I'm not trying to insult you, mostly on personal experiences? Because, right, she's trying to be qualified. She's going to be one of these hybrid. Sometimes she's a fact expert because she investigated some aspects relating to this case. But other times she's going to be a gang expert, or she's going to be speaking generally. And there's been an issue in this trial over and over again where usually it's Love doing the questioning, lets this fact/gang expert witness blur the type of testimony they're giving. And then we have to ask for a curative instruction, right? I think we saw that with Dennis when he was recently on the stand. So Steele's trying to get at what is actually your expert testimony versus coming from personal experience. So the court, your love objects, the court says, hold on, this is Glanville, you guys. I'm going to overrule that objection. She can answer that. The witness, I wouldn't say personal, it's my work experience. It's my work experience with YSL that I think affords me the knowledge base and the ability to understand the gang. Of course, I take training and I keep taking training. I can listen to somebody teach on YSL if I were to. Mr. Steele, I couldn't hear that. I'm sorry. I could keep taking training. I could take courses on YSL. What courses? But I think my experience, compounded with the training that I've had, is what makes me such an expert on this gang, even as to where if you listen to the wiretap, I think the members of the gang consider me an expert on the gang. All right, so I'm going to ask you all about that. Sure, but I think that you answered directly, yes, it's mostly your personal experience. Then I want to get into other things that you said you did. Miss Love, objection as to mischaracterization. Mr. Steele, I think that is what she just said, and if she didn't, she can correct it. The witness, I would say it's both. It's a combination of both. Both are equally as important. But I think that what I have that is different, that somebody just attends training, is my experience with the defendants, the Cleveland Avenue community, the rival gang, things of that nature. Not everybody has that. Not everybody has talked to Mr. Bennett, that's Lucci. Not everybody has interacted with members of YFN. So a lot of people don't have that. And I think that is something that gives me an edge on top of my training. My Mr. Steele, let's start right there. Mr. Bennett, correct. You were talking about a performer known as YFN Lucci, is correct. Is that fair to say? Okay. When you spoke with Mr. Bennett, as you just said, did he give you any meaningful information about YSL? No. The court, can we pause just 1 second, Mr. Steele? Sure. Okay, go ahead, sir. Thank you. So when you say that you have, a certain benefit because you spoke with Mr. Bennett, but then you said you didn't discuss anything about YSL, how's it a benefit? How do you characterize it as a benefit? I mean, I've met Mr. Bennett. I've had a chance to look at his tattoos. I've had things like, what I'm saying is I've had experiences that the average officer or investigator may not have had. I've interviewed members of YFN. I've listened to jail calls. I've reviewed phone extractions of YFN. So I see it from both sides. It's kind of a rare thing. You might find it with Tyrone Dennis, Kim Underwood, and Mark Belknap. But outside of that, I don't know if you're going to have many people that have that. So she's saying the only other people that are having the same expertise as her are the same people that she shouted out previously for being who she came up under, her mentors. She said, I came up under the guidance of Kimberly Underwood, Mark Belknap, and Tyrone Dennis, who are all well-versed in the YSL and YFN world. So Steele, who did you interview other than Mr. Bennett, who you say is affiliated with YFN, dealing with YSL? Sure, I sat in on the interview with Mr. Glass on the YFN indictment, and I want to say Mr. Boyd, and I would have to think about the others. Well, with Mr. Glass and or Mr. Boyd, and separate them if you need to when you answer the question, did they give you anything that you were using about YSL? I don't want to misspeak. That was in 2020. I can't remember. That's fine. And remember, this is October of 2023. Now, you did say that you met with 6 co-indictees on this case, YSL case. In my course of a 10-year career, I have met, whether it be briefly or during an arrest by another unit or something like that, I've encountered them, yes. We're going to go one at a time, and I'm assuming just so we can move on. Mr. Stillwell is one of them, or Mr. Jackson, correct? And you already answered that that was nothing of substance about YSL. And then Viverito says, I guess if you want to phrase it that way, but my interactions with him and him being evasive and things of that nature, it's hard to describe. When you've worked in this field for so long and around these people, it's hard to describe. I can pick up on certain things that is hard to explain. Okay, well, now is your opportunity. And that's kind of the whole point of an expert witness, is to explain things to the jury so the jury can understand. But she's saying she can't explain the things that make her have an expertise that nobody else can testify to. So Steele says, okay, well, now is your opportunity, but I'm going to move on to Mr. Garlington and Mr. Mender, only because I think that we addressed them. I'm assuming they are 3 of the 6. So this is where we're picking up where we broke off yesterday to watch court. Correct. And it's going to be the same answers you gave before. Correct. None of them were, my word would be forthcoming. You said truthful or something. Correct? Correct. Who were the other 3 members who were indicted according to you? I met with Mr. Sumlin after his arrest. And that was a recorded interview that we have. If you are familiar, it is. Are you familiar with the discovery in this case? Some of it. Okay, Mr. Sumlin, anything outside of the recording? No, not outside the recording. Okay, did he give you any insight into YSL that you were using today before the Honorable Judge Glanville? He did give a good bit of information during that interview. Like what? He explained his role in the gang, that he was out there kind of on Cleveland, I believe, and I don't want to misspeak because I haven't listened to that interview in quite a while. He explained, I guess, they were having some issues on Cleveland Avenue, and he said that Mr. Williams had rented them a house, I think on Browns Mill, that they referred to as the Web, so that they would not be shot at, and they would have some shelter from some sort of violence out there. Steele, Did he actually say that Mr. Williams, according to him, bought a home so that if people didn't have a place to stay, they could stay there? Viverito, it wasn't bought. I believe my research into that property was that it was rented, and the inside had been marked with all types of YSL graffiti from body cam that I viewed from the place when it got shot up. I don't know if he said Mr. Williams, but I know that I would have to listen to the interview again. I don't want to misspeak or say the wrong thing, but I know it was that Mr. Williams had either provided them a home. I think it was the one on Browns Mill that had previously been shot up that, I'm sorry, go ahead. It's okay. No. They were having issues on Cleveland Avenue, and he provided a home for them. Steele, do you have any evidence besides Mr. Sumlin's recordation of that interview that Mr. Williams actually rented, I guess, that home? Other than the fact that it was frequented by YSL members and the inside was covered in YSL graffiti and appeared to be a hub for drug sales consistent with the gang's activities, no. As far as seeing a lease or anything, no. Did anyone else corroborate Mr. Sumlin's statement about that web house, as you called it? I think the corroboration would be, Steele, that Mr. Williams rented it, owned it. I think you said owned, but regardless. Viverito, no, I mean, there were other houses in the neighborhood that the gang would frequent, that it was my understanding that Mr. Williams provided for them. Steele, and how did you get that information, that understanding? Miss Love, Your Honor, I object to the line of questioning that goes beyond the purpose for this hearing itself. The court, yeah, I'll sustain. Steele, can I ask you to consider something? Glanville, what is it? Steele, Investigator Viverito is, I'm asking her based upon, she said she's interviewed and met with 6 co-indictees. I'm asking her what she learned so you can make a foundation. There has to be 2 things. Is it reliable? It has to be reliable information. And is it information that rises to the level of expertise, where you would have to know what it relies upon? Nobody said anything that of the specifics. It was just, I met with Mr. Jackson, Mr. Garlington, and Mr. Mender. We find out afterwards there was nothing of substance. The court, Miss Love, anything before I rule? Miss Love, Your Honor, questioning the witness regarding the information she obtained that led her to draw various conclusions is a different matter than fishing for information regarding Mr. Williams' client, Mr. Steele's client in particular specifically. One is an inquiry into the basis for opinions that she may share. Another is, from our perspective, just an effort to do deeper discovery dives. Mr. Steele, I'm not fishing for anything. I'm asking specifically her basis of knowledge. The court, but that doesn't, I mean, that may be later, Mr. Steele, but in terms of the basis for whether or not she's going to qualify under Daubert, I'm going to sustain the state's objection at this point. Steele, okay. So Steele continues his questioning here. And let me make sure I have my, all right, I do still have law and crime open. No action over there. Nothing happening just yet there. And then Steele says, with regards to, so that's 4 people. Who are the other 2 co-indictees? I think I met Mr. Stevens, so that's Tick, Slug, Trontavia Stevens. He probably does not remember. It was a very long time ago during an arrest somewhere in Zone 3. There was no dialogue with him. It's just encountering him actually out there in Zone 3. So you didn't really meet with Tick. So you really met with 5. Okay, so then Viverito also says, and I want to say Mr. Sledge is the last one. I would have to look at the list of indictees because not everybody is here today. And again, Mr. Sledge would have been the same thing, just during an arrest, seeing him out there. Steele, all right. Now, have you ever gone to or performed or taught any training specifically about YSL outside of the potential wiretap information, which we'll get into? No, I have not taught any training on YSL. Steele, and have you ever been to any training specifically focused on YSL that you did not, that I would like you to tell us about? Viverito, I believe, and I don't remember it well because it was well before this investigation, that during one of the Georgia Gang Investigators Association conferences, I believe it was a summer conference, there was a block on, an instructive block on YSL. Steele, you don't recall it to this day as you sit here today? Unintelligible court reporter says, could you say those names slower, please? The witness, I'm sorry, Mark Belknap and J.P. Miller were the instructors. As much of the content I can't, it was a while ago. By Mr. Steele. A while is 5 years, 2 years? Viverito, a couple years. I can't remember which conference it was. Steele, well, you are clearly not using that today then, are you? Steele said, Viverito says no. With regards to, you talked about, based upon the questioning by the honorable prosecutor, gangs and the music industry. Do you remember those type of questions? I do. Can you explain what you were trying to, or you did maybe say? What does it mean when you say gangs and the music industry? What were you referring to? That's all it was, gangs in the music industry? Viverito, I think Miss Love said, had I ever been familiar with that? Steele, tell us about that. Viverito, often, and we went through, I spoke with some of my coworkers the other night. Out of all the gang cases we have right now, it's very hard to find one where a rapper or music isn't tied into it. It's very common nowadays. But, according to Dennis, we don't chase the music. It could be set up as a front. I've had cases in the past where a gentleman was fronting as a CEO of a record label that didn't have any artists or trying to get a record label off the ground and was indeed trafficking heroin. And I was able to get him almost 10 keys of heroin. So it's a common practice. You'll see it goes all the way back to BMS. They were a drug trafficking organization. I think maybe the court transcriptionist got this wrong. Maybe Weaver heard S instead of F. They were a drug trafficking organization and a gang that masqueraded as a music label to launder their money, something similar to the mob in New York with Waste Management if you watch The Sopranos. Waste Management, things of that nature. Are you telling the court based on your experience that YSL is similar to the Waste Management in New York mafia example? Ms. Love, objection, Your Honor. The court, I'll overrule that. The witness, it's similar in the fact that it's used as a means to further the gang. By Steele. And talking specifics, not the general. I mean the money, the power, the reputation. It's all for the gang. There are two ways the gangs get respect. There's money and there's violence. And the music and the record label, I think, helps with both. Steele, the record label of YSL is what you're saying? Viverito, correct. Okay, what is it helping with? You are saying it's helping with both. What is YSL helping with, the record label? Providing money and also the gang's hyper-violent reputation. And have you studied money, following money like you're referring to now? YSL giving money from the record label to a criminal activity? Well, I think it's, I don't know if, correct me if I'm wrong, is your assertion that Mr. Williams gets his money from the record label, and then Mr. Williams pays members of I've seen phone dumps where the members of the gang are requesting money from Mr. Williams, often for lawyers, for all types of things. If you look through phone dumps, they're asking him for cash apps for money, things of that nature. So if Mr. Williams is getting his money from the record label and providing it to the members of the gang, it provides the gang money. Steele, and that's what you're referring to? How about for the money? Ms. Viverito, I mean, I wouldn't lock myself into this. The only thing, I haven't taken a forensic, I'm not an accountant, I haven't taken a forensic dive into the money. But you see, and it's my experience from jail calls I've listened to, that when individuals, including Mr. Jackson and Mr. Nichols, get locked up for a murder, they are looking for a lawyer to be sent down to the jail immediately, and they are looking for Mr. Williams to do it. So, and then Viverito says, so you are not cheap? I'm sure Mr. Harvey's not cheap. There has to be funds to get that done. Mr. Harvey, oh, how wrong you can be. The witness, supposed funds, Mr. Harvey. The court, is that an objection? Viverito, but I know you two are some of the best lawyers here, but the demands are made. When people go to jail, the demands are made for Mr. Williams to send lawyers down. I mean, and that means Mr. Williams isn't in charge if you're using the word demand, right? This is someone that's got experience testifying on the stand, both as a cop and probably a gang expert in another case, maybe, who knows. You're used to testifying as an expert witness. So when you choose to use a word like, but the demands were made for Mr. Williams to send lawyers down, you're trying to make it sound nefarious, but at the same time, you're crossing your signals here because you're trying to say that Mr. Williams is the one with calling all the shots, running everything, running the waste management cover-up. So why would someone be making demands of him? Why would his own people be making demands of him if he's calling the shots? All because you just want to use the word demand here to make it spicy. So when you say you've never done an audit, a deep dive audit, has anyone tried to follow the money that you are relying upon here when you testify to that before the Honorable Judge Glanville? That, I don't know. You said power. The other part is power and reputation. I think are three, but then you said two. What is the power that you're talking about? The power, the reputation, the violence. I mean, we have spoken to victims' families, and I want to be clear. It sounds like this is 2023, so she could be watching the show Power, and like that main theme song for one of the series, the money, the power, respect, like what are the things that they say in that song? So I'm just thinking of the song. We have Dennis learning things from magazines and movies. Viverito could have been watching Power. You know, it seemed like she tried to mention BMF earlier, and I don't know if she said BMS or if the court reporter transcribed it incorrectly. But, you know, here, yeah, money, power, respect. Like maybe she's just learning from the song, the theme song. The power, the reputation, the violence. I mean, we have spoken to victims' family where they say, how can you harm somebody and put it in a song and re-victimize us? So when you get the music, he's tied to the music and the lyrics, and you play these songs where the crimes are described in particularity. It furthers the violent reputation of the gang. Not only can I commit this crime, not only can I do it, but I can rap about it, and I can make money off of it. And people can sing along all over the world about this crime I committed, whether they know what they are singing along to or not. And that you're saying in your experience is something that you take into consideration? It is. I've had cases where children will shoot another child dead in Atlanta. We heard this speech from Underwood. Same speech from Underwood. Underwood learned from Viverito.
You also said that there are songs which have killed children in Atlanta. Which songs? I don't know specific songs, but I know that is music. The reason for the beef, as far as the Atlantic Station situation, they were going back and forth on social media with songs and disrespecting each other. Next thing you know, is gunplay and children are dead.
You're the expert, detective. Which songs regarding rap violence caused the death of children?
I don't know the name of the songs, but I know that those particular kids were involved in music, talking about each other in the music. Then it's violence spawned because of the music.
It is. I've had cases where children will shoot another child in Atlanta and then go make a rap song about it, in particularity within hours, and release that with a post of the kid's dead body on there. So it's autobiographical. And the response has to be, even once you put that out there, like, Mr. Steele, if you and I are in a room and I slap you, me and you know about it and maybe a few other people. You put a song out, everybody knows it, and it gets played, it goes viral. And then the response to that disrespect has to be just as public and just as powerful. Otherwise, someone's ego is bruised. This sounds like she listened to like a Quando Rondo interview where he's like, you know, people will say, like, you let someone slap you and disrespect you, why don't you go get your get back? And he's like, but what would I look like 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, if I get locked up for trying to get some get back? People are then 30 years later are going to say I'm stupid for trying to shoot somebody because they slapped me. Right? So this is like, I feel like I can just picture Viverito watching these interviews and thinking that that's her gang research. Because this is very similar to me to a Quando Rondo example. And then the response to that disrespect has to be just as public and just as powerful. Otherwise, someone's ego's bruised. So the music, I could sit here all day and talk to you about the music aspect of it, but the music equals power and lets the gang's violent reputation activities carry on. Have you ever been to any training or taught any training about what you were saying now about music? I don't believe so. Do you know of any peer-reviewed or scholarly journals or articles or books about this? I think there were a few articles that I found that I really couldn't find access to, but I didn't see the titles of the articles showing that rap music or drill music correlates to, and this is all Underwood. This is like, we just had Underwood on the stand, you guys. And this is just me paraphrasing what I've seen. Correlates to an increase in violence, or sometimes one article I saw or headline that I saw that was interesting. Granted, I didn't get to read the whole article, was that on days when rap music records are released, there's a spike in violent crime. So there are articles. I just have not had the opportunity to read them. This is a Daubert hearing. Oh my gosh. This is a Daubert hearing. And this is from Amira. This is from Marissa Viverito's Daubert hearing in October of 2023. So right before trial started. Yeah, right. Are there not like releases every day? Are they trying to say that there's like an October jump in crimes because, you know, there's a bunch of October drops? Like, oh my gosh. Crazy. And not for nothing, but like summer spikes in violence because people go outside. A lot of people try to drop summer hits too. So like correlation is not causation, first of all. Second of all, read the damn articles. Holy moly. Oh my gosh. We didn't even read the information. At least Dennis read the magazines. So there are articles. I just have not had the opportunity to read them. My time, I think, as little time as I do have, is better spent reviewing phone dumps and jail calls and things. So this is investigative and not gang expert work then. And they're going to try to blend her fact testimony as expert testimony. And things of that nature are real time and involve the people I'm actually dealing with. Steele, and understanding you didn't read them and you are correct, just going off a headline, did any of those reports deal with YSL? I don't believe so. Okay, now you stated that you had daily, approximately, I think you said daily exposure to gang members, alliances, colors, territories, things like that. Do you remember giving that type of testimony? Correct. Is that similar to what you're saying now? You're listening to jail calls, and I don't want to limit you. No, it's jail calls, it's phone dumps, it's surveillance video. Like I said, there's a camera out on Cleveland Avenue. It was part of Mr. Greer's probation revocation. So Greer, is it Quantavious Greer, Unfunk? That's Jeffrey Williams' brother. He was indicted. He ended up messing up. His probation was revoked. So he's in custody currently. I kind of utilize everything that's available to us. We might go out actually and sit on Cleveland Avenue and observe what's going on unbeknownst to the people operating out there. So in some form or fashion, I'm interacting with somebody almost daily. But that's not really interacting if they're unbeknownst to the other person. This paragraph is contradictory. Let's read this again. We might go out actually and sit on Cleveland Avenue and observe what's going on, unbeknownst to the people operating out there. So in some form or fashion, I'm interacting with somebody almost daily. What? Stop. Okay, Steele says, or observing somebody. Is that what you were saying? Observing, yeah. Interacting would be like what we're doing now. Okay. Oh my gosh. This is why you can't try to beef up yourself like with your words. If you beef up your words, you're going to make yourself sound stupid. Just speak plainly. She says, interacting would be something like we're doing now. Okay. Like, oops. Observing or encountering gang members in some form or fashion, whether it be jail calls, reviewing phone extractions, observing them in their natural habitat out there on Cleveland Avenue. Oh my God, why would you word it that way?
Oh my gosh. I think he likes you.
Observing them in their natural habitat out there on Cleveland Avenue. Somebody play Love's opening statement with the Jungle Book. What the heck is this? Observing them in their natural habitat out there on Cleveland Avenue, like Thorpe on the playground. Looking at their graffiti that is now out there on the park. Oh my gosh. Yeah, at this point we can call her Marissa Dorito. That's what the closed captions are going to call her. You know how the closed captions be. This is crazy. You're observing them unbeknownst to the people, observing them in their natural habitat. You are asked to clear up your misspeak for trying to blend observe as being an interaction. So you can pick up experience interacting with these people because that's the basis of your unique experience. Observing them unbeknownst, observing them in their natural habitat. This sounds like praying. Like, oh my gosh. Right, is this a zoo?
Necessary to distribute to other large areas to prevent conflict from arising.
Sounds stupid, sounds dumb. Oh my gosh. Let's see what else we get. When you said that the 6 criteria of the Atlanta Police Department currently, I believe that is what you're talking about. Correct. How long has that been the criteria, approximately, if you can tell us? That I don't know. I've been there since February, so I know at least since February, but probably longer. I just don't want to misspeak on that. I understand. In February of this year? Correct. And who came up with that criteria, if you know? I believe according to investigator Belknap, it was criteria developed out in California, and it's used with departments throughout the country. Do you know how many departments use that versus something else? I do not. You said the first criteria I wrote down is a self-admission. Correct. That means if you hear me say, I'm a member of the gang, the Steele Law Firm. Correct. That would be my self-admission. Okay. And that is during the course of some sort of interview, interrogation, arrest, something job related, I assume. Could be. It could be a published video of someone proclaiming themselves the founder or leader of a gang. It could be a cell phone dump where they are proclaiming their membership in a gang. What if it's false? How do you determine something that is a false statement versus a true confession? How is that done? Sure. I weigh that against, I never take anything. Remember this, guys. Remember this line. Remember this line. Sure. I weigh that against, I never take anything at face value from anybody. So I kind of go and conduct my own investigation. I will look at when people have been arrested, who they've been arrested with, where they've been arrested, their jail calls, their phone extractions, their clothing, the way they dress, their alliances, things of that nature. So I never just use that as, okay, so they said it, so it's true. I would like to do that, but I'm more comfortable if I can make sure and do the extra work to make sure that it's true. So hold on to this, guys. Steele, and then reliable informant. What deems it reliable? Somebody of past tested reliability. So somebody that we may have used before that we know is truthful and reliable, has given us reliable information in the past. There's some custom emojis that would make a lot of sense for you guys to be dropping in the chat right now. Certain reliable person. Is that somebody who is actually ranked, recorded as a confidential source? Doesn't have to be, no. So it's just law enforcement's determination? Correct. No criteria that you know about? Not that I know of. I know it's past reliability, somebody that we deem reliable. And then an unknown informant is number 3, I wrote down. But then there's corroboration. Correct. So somebody that I don't know in Cleveland might, for example, might say something, and I don't know this person well, and we have never gotten information from them before, but they may have given some information that I can go back and validate on my own. So they say Brian Steele is part of some criminal street gang, right? And then you would go investigate Brian Steele. No, I wouldn't go and launch an investigation. I would kind of just vet that information first before investigating. But it's important to corroborate the information, like the standard operating procedure says, SOP. How much corroboration? What are we talking about? Who determines, yep, this is corroborated unknown informant? I guess it would be up to the investigator. I like to err on the side of caution and be extra sure. And extra sure is, in the eyes of the officer making the determination? I believe so. So there's really not, I understand the 6 points, but to your understanding, since February, there is really not a set requirement where you have to reach this bar. You have to corroborate it with 3 different criteria. It's just whatever corroboration that investigator, you or someone else might not be as thorough as you, deems to be appropriate. I guess. I don't have the whole standard operating procedure in front of me, but I know that's the third criteria, how the third criteria reads, the independent corroboration. Where is the standard operating procedure? I would guess it's in the policy and procedures manual of the Atlanta Police Department. Is that something, if the judge orders it, you can also provide? I don't know if that can come from me. That might have to come from the law department or wherever they do that, however they do that. That might be out of my, okay. The next one is 4. Lives in, this is my wording, my writing, lives in a gang-infested area. You may not have said that, but something like that. No, frequents a known, and I'm not speaking verbatim from but frequents known gang areas or territories, the natural habitat, and adopts the style of dress and other identifiers, the affect, the hand signals, things of that nature. What is a gang? You just said it. Gang-infested is what I say. But what is that area? How do you deem something gang-infested versus not gang-infested? Miss Love, Your Honor, I object to the use of infested since the witness has not testified in that manner. The court, yeah, I'll sustain the objection. The witness, I don't think that we deem it. I objected, so, Mr. Steele, whatever word you put to it on the area. Your Honor, I object, and I ask the question be clarified before Glanville. Clarify the question, Mr. Steele. Mr. Steele, sure. It's the same question, except remove the word infested and put an area. We don't determine those areas. The members of the gang determine those areas. So the members of the gang will post out there. They'll take over stores out there. For instance, if you go to either, is this the Moongtoon Baggy Shop, 151? If you go to either 151 or 221 Cleveland, you'll see they've essentially taken over those gas stations. You'll see where the crimes commit, where the gang regularly can be found. I know for those poor kids out there on Cleveland Avenue Park, it's littered with graffiti all over the place about Quentin Porter and YSL and things of that nature. So I use all of those factors. When they hold Cleveland Avenue Day and things of that nature out there where all the gang members congregate, there's an area where they feel safe. So that's kind of how we make the determination about an area. And then again, you go through police reports and see where these crimes occur. Are they victims out there? Are they frequently out there? Are they frequently getting arrested at these locations? When search warrants are being done at houses and things of that nature? Are YSL members being found in these locations? It's a bunch of factors you look at. Steele, couldn't a person, though, associate, they have friends there in that area. They have the tattoo. What type of tattoos are you talking about? Could be different ones. YSL, slime, slat, the snake, blood tattoos. There's several different ones. Any or all of those? What is wrong with somebody having those tattoos, associating in that area with other people that have been self-admitted gang members? Why does that make that person, though? I mean, I didn't write the criteria. That's the criteria. Okay, number 5 is arrest. I wrote down arrest while committing a criminal street gang, some criminal street gang activity with other gang members. Is that correct? It's self-explanatory? Correct. And then the last one is, I wrote a strong association with the gang. What is that? Is that number 6? Yep. So remember, when she was on direct, she said, prongs, criteria 1 through 5. If you meet any one of these, we could say that, you're probably a gang member. That's our criteria. Any one of those 5. Number 6 is a little different. Number 6 is basically, if there's something there, you don't really meet the other criteria. Number 6 gives us the route to call you an associate. So Steele's going to probe on that a little bit here. What is that? What is number 6? Yeah, if they have a strong relationship and ties to the gang, but they don't meet any of the 5 criteria, they don't rise to the level of the 5 previous criteria, they are an associate of the gang. Steele, Investigator Viverito, in your understanding and experience, is a lot of the APD criteria left up to the judgment of the individual investigator, or is there some sort of peer review? These are my words. Peer review to determine the conclusion. No, this person doesn't fit 1 through 6, or this person does. I mean, I think the investigator can make that call, but there are supervisors that review reports and cases and sign off on search warrants, things of that nature. Is there anything that Judge Glanville, he's going to be asked, I assume, for certain demarcations of your potential expertise? Is there anything, if let's say I challenge it, that you can tell me, here is a definitive mark. You have to get above these many points on 1 through 6, or is it just really the discretion of the person looking at it? Ms. Love, objection as to the form of the question. I mean, I understood it. The court also sustained the question. Let me ask it again. 1 through 6, you need 1 of them. I think you told me. 1 through 5, you need 1 to be considered a member of the gang. And if you don't meet any of those, but you you do show a close relationship to the gang, like oftentimes females are deemed, males too, but females are often deemed associates. And that would be the associate 6? Yes. And the statute allows either a member or associate. Correct. So my question is, you need one of those 6. Correct. And this is a judgment call for the investigator. Correct. I'm not saying you will be, but if you are allowed to testify as to tattoos, graffiti, words, dress, clothing, jewelry, things that you mentioned earlier, correct. If a jury was armed with that information, then what happens? A jury then makes a determination whether the person is in the Mislav objection. Court, don't answer that. That is not a proper question, Mr. Steele, for her. Mr. Steele, I think it goes to Daubert on whether it assists the jurors. The court, I'm going to make that determination. Steele, one more time. Glanville, I'm going to make that determination, right? Correct. You are the gatekeeper. The court. So she doesn't need to answer that question. Steele, this sharing of information weekly or bi-weekly with others and learning from others in law enforcement, do you remember something like that? Correct. Who were you? I'm assuming if you were there, who are you meeting with or learning from or teaching? We meet weekly at the Atlanta Police Department, and it's several units. There's usually a representative from each unit, and we discuss crimes that take place throughout the past week that may or may not have a gang-related element to them. And we also discuss high-level, conflicts throughout the city. So when you say separate divisions, are you talking about larceny? Typically burglary, aggravated assault, robbery, auto theft, homicide. There will be pretty much a representative from each person in the room. So this is not just gang-related, but it could go into gangs. That is what I hear you saying. It's to go over the incidents that occurred over the past week that may have a tie to gang activity. So we evaluate them to see if there's a gang element or there's a possible gang element that needs to be evaluated. Things of that nature, to be able to stay on top of rising conflicts throughout the city. And who is in your division, if anyone? I know they created a new position for you, and congratulations. Thank you. Who else is with you at these meetings on your side, or are you solo? The supervisors from the gang unit attend. Our major attends. Sometimes the deputy chief will attend. I'm asking you who they are. So Major Woolfolk, Deputy Chief Hampton, Lieutenant Jones, Sergeant Henderson, Sergeant Kleinhens, and then depending on what gang has had an incident that week, the investigator that's knowledgeable on that particular gang will attend the meeting to provide some insight and help with the other units. How many total times have you been qualified and accepted as an expert in YSL gang? None. I couldn't hear you. None. I feel like Steele heard her. Steele just had her say it twice. How many times total have you been accepted as an expert in, I'll just say gangs? None. She is teaching the courses. When you said you investigated approximately, you said around give or take, so I'm not wetting this number, but 25 cases. Is that just the Fulton County DA's office, or does that go back to when you were with the community supervision? If we go back to community supervision, it's going to be a lot more, because I would get reached out to constantly for help on investigations. But as far as cases that I helped work up for trial while at the Fulton County DA's office and RICO indictments that I worked up or was part of at the GBI Gang Task Force, as well as the Fulton County District Attorney, that's cumulative of that. Steele, I'm gaining your experience. It sounds like most of it, I'm using your words, is work experience that you use then to prosecute cases or understand how to prosecute cases or understand how to investigate cases. Is that fair to say? No, like I told Mr. Harvey, I have the training basis of it. Well, my experience and the experiences that I have been afforded are just kind of like a bonus that gives me more of an edge. And those are the experiences that we talked about already? Correct. The wiretap, listening to, Mr. Harvey calculated at like 8,000 calls for us and thousands of jail calls, phone extractions. I mean, some of these phone extractions have information that you would never gather just speaking to somebody or learn in a training. So watching video visits from the jail have proven very interesting. Jail text messages, like I said, watching hours and hours of YouTube videos and documentations and listening to music and lyrics and things of that nature. And again, I worked on the YFN case, so kind of giving a full understanding of the conflict from both sides. So guys, you heard it here. You can watch YouTube videos and become an expert.